I welcome you to this important discussion on ethical entrepreneurship. Today, I have divided this session into two parts. First, I'll be uh, discussing with you ethics in entrepreneurship. Then we will discuss ethical entrepreneurship, and finally, we will also discuss uh, ethical business culture. How is it important for being an ethical enterprise and an ethical entrepreneur and ethical entrepreneurship, and to practice ethical entrepreneurship? So let's begin with our discussion. The objectives of this session. After going through this discussion, you should be able to understand the meaning of ethical entrepreneurship. You should be able to identify different theories associated with ethical entrepreneurship. You need to understand the importance of it in entrepreneurial growth, and by considering diverse economic sectors from an ethical standpoint. And as I told you at the end, you will be understanding how important is ethical business culture in order to run the show. So we'll be discussing about ethics, advantages and disadvantages of ethical behavior, theories of ethical entrepreneurship, some ethical dilemmas that you will face as an entrepreneur in business organizations, integration of ethics into various economic areas, etc. To start off with ethical entrepreneurship, let me brief you a little bit about ethical entrepreneurship. Just as an entrepreneur is key to the health of a society's economy, so too is the entrepreneur key to its ethical well-being. Narrow definitions of entrepreneurship that measure success based on wealth creation alone constrict responsible responses to ethical challenges, contributing to continual ethical lapses. This unit examines the emphasis on virtue as an important element of successful entrepreneurship. You need to inculcate virtues of ethics and be ethical to run your show. Many of the ethical lapses that have polluted our business climate appear to have come from business cultures that elevated greed to a corporate value. The etymology of the word ethics has a source of origin, the Greek word ethos, which means morality, set of moral norms, character, and habits, but also fundamental values. Business ethics is perceived as a certain category of applied ethics and is considered as application of moral or ethical norms to business. Market opportunity is the biggest motivational factor for an individual to choose the entrepreneurship perspective. Business ethics includes the main set of rules or principles that many organizations should follow in order to achieve performance. Ethics sets a standard for the organization to impose a certain type of behavior. We term it as the ethical behavior. The ethics which is developed in an enterprise, a company, corporation, or organization is based on creating a sustainable organizational culture. So, organizational culture is very, very important in order to promote ethics in an enterprise. The code of conduct is a concept with significant implications for business. Every entrepreneur, businessman should always be prepared to take responsibility for his actions and decisions. Because business ethics is an essential aspect of leadership. Business ethics is one of the specialized directions of applied ethics, which is focused on moral principles. Moral values and ethical behavior represent the cornerstone of a sustainable development of entrepreneurship and business ethics. Ethical entrepreneurship or leadership is a very interesting concept that ensures balance in a business organization. Any emerging business in terms of entrepreneurship is directly related with the concerned society and work as being part of the same society. Ethical responsibility represents a significant concept in achieving a sustainable growth, a sustainable level of growth and development of modern enterprises. These two scientists, Surka et al., in 2015, investigated a wide range of important aspects regarding ethics in business and concluded that business ethics represents a key pillar in achieving both profit and success for enterprises in the current period. Jamnik in 2011 argued that managers have a very frequent interaction with managers or entrepreneurs have a frequent interaction with ethical issues in their current activities. Paliwal in 2006 examined the concept of ethical behavior in its dynamics and concluded that it is based on the following few, like honesty, integrity, morality, and good management practices. So, a ethical entrepreneur should be honest, should have integrity, morality, and should practice good management practices. We will now define ethics. Ethics can be defined as the moral standards with which people judge behavior. These standards are closely tied to a particular social context. So for example, someone living in China may judge a particular action as unethical, while the same action could be considered perfectly acceptable in Great Britain. Entrepreneurship we have already defined, but for our discussion here, let us again define entrepreneurship, which is defined as the creation of a new business entity to provide a new or existing good or service to a new or existing market has a tremendous impact on the quality of the way we live because of the goods and services that are provided and the way wealth is distributed. Economic activities such as entrepreneurship are embedded in society and shaped by moral values. Consequently, the ethics of entrepreneurship from a societal level will be discussed initially, which is followed by a focus on the ethics of entrepreneurship. So, entrepreneurship is a central public policy issue in most countries. It has been linked to the creation of millions of jobs and new products and services. These products and services have altered the way people work and live, allowing them to perform tasks and enjoy life in ways that were previously inconceivable. In addition, entrepreneurship is associated with the concept of self-determination by providing opportunities for people to own and operate businesses. All of this has led to greater efficiency and the creation of wealth. From a capital perspective, these are great things. However, not all societies view wealth creation in the same positive light. For example, in spite of recent advances in China with regard to support of entrepreneurial activity, the communist mindset tends to be much more concerned about the distribution of this wealth. Chinese leaders tolerate the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of entrepreneurs because they understand the connection between entrepreneurship and the overall wealth of a country. Varying levels of entrepreneurship across countries provide evidence that some social orders are more encouraging to entrepreneurship than others. Obviously, the existence of venture capital is a huge determinant of such variance. However, the legal system is also a key factor. In general, the less encumbered machinery is with legal restrictions, laws, and regulations pertaining to business dealings, the more likely that entrepreneurship will take place. A study of business students by Bossain et al. Found that the US students are more likely to intend to start a business than their French counterparts. They also discovered significant differences in their beliefs. Another interesting development in this stream of thinking is the role that entrepreneurship plays in reducing inequities amongst organizational stakeholders. Venkatramana calls these inequities value anomalies. For example, an employee may add much more value to an organization than what is received in return. In these situations, if society allows it, the employee may sever ties with the organization to pursue a separate venture and thus become an entrepreneur. Venkatramana also suggests that major shifts in technologies can lead to numerous value anomalies, which may lead up until they result in sweeping changes to organizations and industries. One example of this phenomena is the large number of computer nerds of the late 20th century who become owners or co-owners of their own companies. Many of them previously worked for large corporations where their talents were underutilized and under-rewarded. In essence, wealth was redistributed to them as sweeping changes took place in technologies and the resulting organizational forms. The absence of social order that facilitates entrepreneurship would have stifled these equilibrating processes. Nonetheless, these arguments in favor of a society unencumbered by legal restrictions to entrepreneurship taken to the extreme can be dangerous. The fact is that people may engage in entrepreneurship for good or bad reasons. For example, an illegal drug dealer may peddle narcotics to teenagers in an attempt to create wealth. Most people from any culture would agree that this is a bad thing for society. Laws that are enacted and enforced to protect against such activities can actually be helpful to entrepreneurship because they provide a stable environment in which to do business. For instance, Anokin and Scholes in 2009, based on a study of 64 nations, found that better control of corruption is associated with rising levels of innovation and entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, there is not a reliable connection between law and ethics. For example, some companies buy prescription medicines in Canada and then sell them illegally in the United States. One of their primary targets is old retired people who cannot afford to buy the higher priced drugs in the United States. The question then arises whether, in this case, breaking the law is ethically sound because it is helping provide needed drugs to old people. In some nations, entrepreneurs circumvent government regulations. For instance, Williams found that only 10% of the 331 Ukrainian entrepreneurs included in his study were operating on a wholly legitimate basis. Governments have to find a balance between protecting their citizens and facilitating entrepreneurial behaviors. People who become entrepreneurs tend to be unconventional thinkers. As mavericks and risk takers, they break away from many social norms. In fact, Zhang et al. Found that adolescents who break the rules are more likely to become entrepreneurs. In addition, Rutherford et al. Argue that entrepreneurs may lie in an effort to obtain legitimacy with their stakeholders as they seek to obtain resources. However, Combs et al. Point out that entrepreneurs need to exhibit trustworthy behavior with their stakeholders in order to reduce perception of risk and facilitate transfer of resources into the venture. Early development of trust is likely to be even more important in underdeveloped markets where resources are scarce. For instance, Nguyen and et al. Found that the Vietnamese entrepreneurs engaged in trust building activities and that trust was a factor in interorganizational collaboration. Given the unconventional personalities of entrepreneurs, it is reasonable to think that their ethics may be different from other types of managers. Somewhat surprising given that they tend to be rule breakers. Thiel et al. Found evidence that entrepreneurs exhibit moral reasoning skills at a higher level than either middle-level managers or the general adult population. They discovered that entrepreneurs were more likely to think independently and reject social norms. In fact, almost none of the entrepreneurs exhibited moral reasoning at the lowest levels. In another study that compared the ethical standard of managers with entrepreneurs, Bucher found that more entrepreneurs believed it was unethical to use company services, supplies, or time in non-company activities. Also, a large percentage of entrepreneurs felt that it was wrong to take longer than necessary to do a job, to authorize subordinates to violate a company policy, or to hire competitors to learn trade secrets. Personal ethics also vary by country. Bucher et al. Discovered some striking differences among entrepreneurs and managers in Slovenia, the United States, and Russia. For example, 91.7% of the Slovenian entrepreneurs in their sample felt that it was wrong to take extra personal time during lunch hours and breaks compared with that of 80% and 69.8% for the US and Russian entrepreneurs respectively. For managers, the percentages were 92.6 in Slovenia, 56.8 in the United States. Russian managers were not included in the study. As might be expected, only 49.7% of Russian entrepreneurs believed it was wrong to give gifts in exchange for preferential treatment, compared with that of 81% and 84.8% for Slovenian and American counterparts, respectively. Managers in each country were similar in percentages to that of their entrepreneur counterparts. To summarize, entrepreneurship is a central issue to policymakers of nations throughout the world. Although the wealth-creating benefits of entrepreneurial activities are widely extolled, serious societal concerns exist regarding distribution of wealth and protection of citizens against potential abuses. So successful entrepreneurs sometimes build great wealth and power in society, and entrepreneurial firms tend not to be subject to the same oversight as corporations. Consequently, the ethical behavior of an entrepreneurial firm largely depends on the ethics of the entrepreneur. Fortunately, by most measures, entrepreneurs tend to have higher ethical standards and moral reasoning than other types of managers. As a caveat to this statement, we should remember that some entrepreneurs, such as drug dealers, engage in unethical business activities. The subjects that have been sampled in this stream of research reflect only a portion of the large population of entrepreneurs. So ethical entrepreneurship, having understood ethics is important in business or enterprises, we now start discussing about ethical entrepreneurship. Generally, Ethics is misunderstood by many. Its true applicability requires a deep understanding. That's why we are defining the terms ethics, entrepreneurship again and again, modifying the definitions to come up with the right definitions. So the term ethical system refers to a body of moral principles or ideals. Human attitudes are shaped by local customs and communal behaviors. Many sociocultural or religious equations exert an imprint on human ethical perception. An individual's activities are motivated by exposure to knowledge and thoughts of the society in which they live. Even a set of cultural beliefs can sometimes be linked to ethical behavior. People generally associate ethics with the mere word morality, but its horizons cover more areas. According to Wheeler, business ethics is an art and science for maintaining harmonious relationship with society, its various groups and institutions, as well as recognizing the moral responsibility for the rightness and wrongness of business conduct. People learn history to comprehend legal, intellectual, and societal advancement, much as they study various sorts of assumed and philosophical advancements, as well as customs, attitudes, and beliefs. How people present themselves, act, and engage now may alter substantially from what was deemed appropriate a century ago. The particular slide shows you a model of moral entrepreneurs. If you take a look at moral entrepreneurship, opportunity for moral entrepreneurship is the first, which is important. Moral issues, moral voids leads us to moral entrepreneurship. The vision for moral entrepreneurship depends on moral awareness, moral development, and moral identity. And finally, capability for moral entrepreneurship also will lead us to moral entrepreneurship. Our drive towards transition, the capability to gain power. All these factors will lead us to moral entrepreneurship, which requires us to be a moral person or the moral manager. So ethical leadership is all about moral entrepreneurship, being the moral person and the moral manager. So the factors which impact ethical leadership can develop morality in society, can develop ethics in society. The ethical leaders gain the trust of stakeholders in order to practice ethical entrepreneurship. So you can see that the example below demonstrates how emphasizing 8 predecessors make it possible to differentiate between morality and ethics and explain that morality is a component of ethics. It's been very well clarified that ethics and morality are two different things. Ethics is somewhat related to good, bad, duties and obligations. On the other hand, morality is related to the principle of right and wrong. While they are both derived from the Greek word, they have different meanings. Ethics, ethos meaning character, whereas the other means are mos meaning customs, which are generally attributed to a group of society. Norms of morality are expressed generally as rules and statements, whereas ethical norms are comparatively national. Ethics are adopted or absorbed gradually by taking reasonable decisions by the nature of the situation. On the other hand, morals are adopted from the initiation of basic learning from childhood, from family surroundings, religion, culture, school, friends, etc. Ethics have a much wider scope that examines moral standards of a group or society, whereas morals are just concerned about analyzing human needs for belonging and emulation. So the moral has limited scope. Ethical entrepreneurship will take a look at a major source of business ethics. Some of the major source of business ethics are personal ethics, organizational ethics, and other ethical sources. If you take a look at personal ethics, these refer to the design of an ethical paradigm with personal beliefs, values, and morals, alongside native culture and religious practice that affects the societal structure, business, and other areas of life. In a sense, controls the mechanism by steering thoughts and actions. Organizational ethics, in contrast, organizational culture individuals to prioritize the organization's requirements ahead of their self-interest. This usually incorporates historical development, rules governing structure, employee benefits, training, and a range of products. All these elements contribute to the foundation underpinning ethical behavior in the company. Other ethical sources, multiple direct and indirect pressures have an impact on the institution's standards of ethics. Customers, market pressures, government rules, and players with social expectations are amongst them. To address these, a healthy balance must be achieved. Certain basic features of ethics: integrity, objectivity, quality, the goal of entrepreneurship, competency, professional behavior, fair business practice are some of the basic features of ethics that you need to practice while practicing entrepreneurship. Integrity, people who work in the business world ought to be trustworthy in both their professional judgments and their commercial dealings. Second is objectivity. Business people should not let prejudice, dispute, or improper influence delay making professional decisions and fulfilling obligations. When formulating knowledgeable judgments and suggestions, personnel should keep their objectives in mind. Quality. Businesses or enterprises should be dedicated to providing services by combining their resources, expertise, and understanding of moral principles. The goal of entrepreneurship should be to provide results that advance social and organizational growth. Competency. Organizations should work to connect client needs with practitioners who may have the necessary skills. Creative thinking and innovation that enhance the value and effectiveness of commercial services have to be constantly cultivated. Next is professional behavior is a feature of ethics. Entrepreneurship should adhere to all applicable legal requirements, rules, and norms. Entrepreneurs should promote a climate of proper professionalism, skepticism, and accountability, since these traits are crucial for sustaining customer relationships and enhancing the caliber of the service a firm offers. Companies should be aware of the larger effects of their activities on society, their employees, and their clients. Additionally, they should care to uphold the public's faith in the work they accomplish. Fair business practice is a basic feature of ethics. To guarantee healthy competition and a competitive climate, ethical business processes must be followed. Likewise, the corporation or the enterprise should adhere to the laws and regulations required for conducting business and for protecting all domains. So these are the basic features of ethics to practice ethical entrepreneurship. We will now take a look at the many advantages and disadvantages of ethical behavior. Before we can discuss advantages and disadvantages of ethical behavior, let me introduce you to ethical behavior. The process of doing business involves taking risks, forcing future possibilities, arranging finances, and engaging in various activities with profit-making potential. In a nutshell, an entrepreneur is someone who has the ability and willingness to take risks and create a structure through which he can implement his ideas in the real world. These involve innovation, the instruction of new ideas, or the introduction of new ideas, or creativity, or the destruction of old ones to explore new possibilities. To summarize, an entrepreneur is someone who has the determination and will to start a new venture or business and the ability to take risks. While connecting entrepreneurship and ethics, one could see how they both work together in the development of a person to identify the right business, which develops the right vision and develops society as a whole. Through ethical entrepreneurship, people can learn how to create businesses to go beyond tried business models with acceptable product market fit. Every inefficient, unproductive, or inappropriate use of resources is scrutinized and eliminated totally. Creating a culture that prohibits these behaviors is both financially prudent and necessary for brand management. To inspire a group of people working together to achieve predetermined goals to improve the quality of life for future generations while also making a positive contribution to society. Some of the most significant advantages include the following. The advantages that we can take note of for having ethical behavior are as follows. Ethical behavior ensures that employees carry out their duties honestly. It outlines the right way to deal with the issue. This minimizes the likelihood of fraud, deception, or unethical business activities and ensures a level playing field. Ethics in the workplace are significant because they affect how individuals act. Ethics outline the proper course of action and establish boundaries for moral or immoral behavior. One may consider ethics as a set of principles to avoid making biases, thereby behaving responsibly. Business ethics assure entrepreneurs of both the veracity and quality of the services they provide. This will effectively prevent opportunistic behavior. Not just opportunistic behavior, also black marketing and hoarding. Maintain proper production and distribution control. So businesses may or enterprises may improve customer loyalty and brand reputation by putting ethical responsibility measures in place. A business may get benefits in terms of sales and profits by adhering to ethical standards. Ethical conduct can increase productivity and staff morale. The corporate group ensures that all stakeholders are fairly treated. For example, promote transparency in commercial transactions as well as put together correct business data. When corporate ethics are a guiding concept, employees make better and faster decisions as they develop a healthy environment in the organization for decision-making purposes. The effectiveness of a company depends on relationships. Corporate ethics make sure that everyone gets equal treatment regardless of class or gender. It guarantees a positive workplace environment by treating all equally. This means encouraging professional relationships even outside the workplace. In the long term, ethical leadership may mitigate industrial difficulties, moral and legal circumstances, and implications. It may also assist organizations in expanding their client base, yielding higher income. As and when employees act honestly and with integrity, the entire company benefits. Moving on from advantages of ethical behavior to disadvantages of ethical behavior, we find the following disadvantages of ethical behavior. When working for an organization that values ethics, the objective is to put all stakeholders first. Unfortunately, as a result of the single-minded concentration of profit maximization, shares of certain stakeholders are often jeopardized. The ethical entrepreneurship concept is not ideal for small organizations because they have limited resources and abilities. Implementing such a quintessential paradigm incurs additional costs for such businesses. The organization must spend a lot of time and effort planning and organizing the rollout of ethical practices, as businesses also lack a methodical strategy that saves time. So business ethics are dynamic by nature. Its connotation depends on the individual, the time, and the context. Consequently, to keep up with it, a proper team that has been prepared for these kinds of developments is essential. We will now take a look into the theories of ethical entrepreneurship. Many theories are practiced in enterprises, ethical entrepreneurship theories, like the utilitarian ethics. Next is the normative theories, the deontology ethics, virtue ethics, theological or consequential theories, rule-based theories, and cultural theories. So the various theories need to be understood before going for ethical entrepreneurship. The utilitarian approach emphasizes communal welfare rather than individual welfare. Theory demands that one anticipate the repercussions and chooses the action plan that could bring the maximum utility or the minimum amount of uselessness. The ethically acceptable action as per utilitarianism is the one that will bring about the most beneficial outcome for individuals. Its application is dependent on making choices that are in the interests of the general public. For example, it is the value system that permits self-defense without using violence or starting a war. Since this takes into account rewards and risks, it is often the approach of rational thought in the enterprise. Yet it also comes with some restrictions or boundaries. Firstly, it is challenging to accurately predict the future and determine whether the results of actions will be positive or negative. Secondly, it is difficult to strike a balance between assisting the majority and not upsetting the majority. Normative theories, this philosophy seeks to establish moral benchmarks that distinguish appropriate from inappropriate behavior. It concentrates on a group of guiding principles or a group of admirable qualities in a quest for the one universal standard by which we may measure all of our activities. Theological, deontological, and virtue ethics views make up the three basic categories for normative ethics. Deontology ethics, this approach confirms that a deed's moral standing is independent of how it turns out. From this perspective, rational humans must scrupulously uphold their moral obligations regardless of the results. It entails sacrificing the optimal result. This suggests that an intervention's moral worth isn't determined just by its outcomes, but rather a distinct peculiarity that could be appropriate. This is probably the most effective paradigm of applied public relations ethics. However, this theory has several drawbacks, such as the possibility of conflict when performing duties. The fact that good decisions frequently have unfavorable outcomes, and the fact those decision-making principle might give rise to disputes. Virtue ethics, the focus of virtue ethics is on personal traits, which are often necessary for human development and rather than a checklist of obligations. The concept of virtue ethics was initially developed by Aristotle and other classical Greek thinkers. Understanding and living a morally pure life are goals we all strive towards. So when confronted with ethical forces at work, only the preferred qualities must be used in making judgments. When people uphold virtue, they make the best decisions possible. There is still the possibility of contention while pursuing ethical values. And finally, theological theories. Theology derives its origin from the Greek term telos, which means and logos, which means science. According to theological ethical systems, moral essence is rooted in the effects of behavior instead of the behavior itself. It assesses the morality of each activity by its results. A decision is proper if it has positive results. A decision is improper if it has negative results. Rule-based theories, this theory emphasizes the nature of the act itself rather than its consequences to arrive at universal moral rights and wrongs. Moral rights serve as the foundation of this type of thought by ensuring the existence of legal rights. This theory is given less weight than the consequential theory. This is due to the persuasive arguments of Scottish political economist Adam Smith. The next theory, the cultural theory, the concept emphasizes the importance of adhering to various cultural norms. According to cultural relativism, there are no universal ethical standards. People should not impose their ethical standards on others, and there are no universal ethical standards. Local standards should govern ethical behavior. This theory is based on the idea that when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Strict adherence to cultural relativism may cause people to avoid taking responsibility for their actions and steer clear of difficult moral quandaries. You will, while practicing entrepreneurship in an enterprise, you may be faced with ethical dilemma. An ethical dilemma is a state of confusion and misunderstanding about ethics. It generally arises when a person is stuck between two possibilities. Sometimes these issues cause major problems for which organizations must choose the best solution. Every person encounters such problems in professional, social, and personal situations. The fundamental problem with ethical quandary is that it lacks clarity in providing a clear picture. The problem can be solved through re-examining the issue again, careful analysis of the obtained circumstances, and selecting those options or choices that encourage common good. Certain key concerns of ethical entrepreneurship. One is corporate criminal behavior is a key concern in ethical entrepreneurship. Distributive and procedural justice is another concern for ethical entrepreneurship. Inept conduct is another concern of ethical entrepreneurship, along with social responsibility and legal responsibility. Not just this, commitment to consumers and commitment to employees can also be concerns for ethical entrepreneurship. So, corporate criminal behavior is about using company resources for personal gains, or inflating expenses, or the necessity for appropriate legislation to preserve privacy problems is the most fundamental concern in the current situation. So these three can be considered as corporate criminal behavior, the concern of ethical entrepreneurship. Distributive and procedural justice. There are two major problems that workers in corporations encounter. One is the appropriate mechanism for allocating resources. While distributive conscience is what a person or employee receives can be the concern, the distributive and procedural justice concern in ethical entrepreneurship. Inapt conduct, inappropriate treatment, be it verbal or emotional, creates a hostile workplace for employees and may result in job stress, lower productivity, absenteeism, and so on. Social responsibility. Companies have a responsibility to the community to improve it by investing in social causes like food, education, and the environment. A company should encourage doing public welfare activities and developing infrastructure to support society. Legal responsibility is another concern of ethical entrepreneurship. A startup must take care to secure the necessary regulatory authorizations, licenses, certificates from the relevant government bodies. When marketing, entrepreneurs should use prudence, particularly in the context of religious beliefs. Commitment to consumers. Startups must respond to customer concerns and comments, as well as refrain from taking any measures that could be detrimental to their interests. Firms should also not try to deceive clients by using third-party certification and markings. Well, happy clients are the only things that can help a business to exit. Commitment to the employees. The startup should treat employees' rights with morals and be compliant with the law. Additionally, employees should get regular payment of salaries and benefits and have a robust system in place for managing complaints to maintain healthy growth. Startups should work to maintain their staff's motivation. Having discussed the key concern of ethical entrepreneurship, now let us move to discuss how ethics can be integrated into various economic areas. Ethical behavior can be integrated into the agricultural sector. Ethical concepts and tools confront a variety of issues in the food system. Their goal is to assist experts and others who are willing to engage in these issues in navigating the topic of ethics as applied to agriculture in the form of animal welfare, farm structure composition, food safety measures, environmental impacts, addressing the issue of hunger, and so on. Tourism, safeguarding the interests of customers using tourism services, protecting the nature and environment of tourist destinations, rights of tourists and residents, rights and obligations of tourist authorities and professionals, ensuring green initiation in the hotel and tourism industry that adheres to good ethics conditions for the tourism industry, while quoting the example of El Nido Resorts, 4 resorts in the Philippine archipelago of Palawan. These resorts were built with renewable indigenous materials that were integrated into the hotel architecture. Telecommunication sector, ethics takes into account a wide spectrum of dilemmas in technology. Major problems in this area include improper confidentiality and security, privacy concerns, spammers, unauthorized use of social networking and payments, and investment fraud. Since the telecommunication sector is growing, dramatically, numerous problems can occur if ethics and norms are not applied. Trade, a well-managed trade helps all. A sound plan for luring in a financially driven by moral principles project is needed to achieve sustainability. Entrepreneurs who conduct operations on a global scale are expected to follow all regulatory safety requirements, including environmental regulations. It is also vital to sustaining management satisfaction. Another area, economic area, where ethics is integrated into it is education. Education ethics are crucial because they support the system's efficiency. By defining acceptable and unacceptable behavior, the code of ethics serves to safeguard the interests of both teachers and students. Financial and banking sector is plagued by a variety of ethical problems, including a lack of adequate training, trust and openness, competition pressure, the complexity of financial operations, and the problem of money laundering. Banks can build their brand reputation by pursuing moral behavior. Customers that care about ethics are likely to be drawn by the brand's reputation. As a result, their consumer base should grow and their revenues should rise. Additionally, the issue of non-performing loans will be considerably relieved for the banks. Ethics business culture. A model of ethical business culture has been created through research conducted by the Center for Ethical Business Cultures. It is composed of 5 distinct elements. You can take a look. The 5 distinct elements are stakeholder balance, process integrity, long-term perspective, leader effectiveness, values driven. So, an enterprise need to implement these 5 elements to build an ethical business culture. So, the values driven, the element within the foundation of an organization lies the keystone, the single support on which other interdependent elements depend. In the model, the keystone or core values epitomize the dominant role values play in shaping an ethical business culture. Values underpin ethical culture. We need to distinguish between the values people talk about, those written on the lobby walls, and the values actually practiced within the organization on an everyday basis. The 2 sets of values may be congruent or they can be disparate to varying degrees. The level of conflict or misalignment between the 2 sets of values will determine organizational functionality and efficiency. There is no right set of values that defines an ethical organization. There is no prescriptive ideotype of ethical business culture. Rather, the right corporate values unique to each organization creating an ethical culture are those embodied by organizations, impassioned leaders, and its employees. Corporate values act as roadmaps guiding the corporation through various mindsets that characterize its emotional and operational maturation and enlightened evolution. Next is leadership effectiveness. Building and sustaining an ethical organization necessitates responsible and accountable leadership involvement. From its genesis and throughout its evolution, an ethical organization or enterprise relies on its leadership team's dedication and perseverance to define its culture through its mission, vision, and value statements to protect its integrity at all costs, and to manage its risk by encouraging the right kind of employee behaviors. Employees often perceive pressure from management to achieve unrealistic goals. Ethical leaders must overcome this perception in conscious and deliberate ways. Ethical leaders lead through by example, both personally and professionally, by demonstrating accepted behaviors. Leaders need to be role models of ethical behavior within the organization for its employees as well as for all other stakeholders. Stakeholder balance. The model affirms stakeholder theory that an organization's responsibilities, sphere of influence, and accountabilities are not isolated to the shareholders of the firm, not as widening the orbit of power and authority sees with the obvious but not always acknowledged inclusion of its customers and employees. Rather, the influence the organization exerts is felt far outside the confines of its four walls, encompassing the community, suppliers, and other stakeholders that have a vested interest in the successful and enduring operation of the organization through sustainable management of its resources. Process integrity. The fourth element of the model is characterized as the institutionalization of an organization's values. Process integrity is aligning core business functions and processes with the organization's values. Finally, the long-term perspective. The long-term perspective, the fifth element of the model, is the confluence of values-driven leadership effectiveness, stakeholder balance, and process integrity. It is within the implied meaning of this fifth element of ethical business culture that the concepts represented by each of the first four elements are drawn together to define the true purpose of the organization. For the true purpose of the organization or enterprise, it is for the true purpose of the enterprise is not to serve only the master of the purse strings, but to benefit the common good of the community in which the organization exists. The purpose of business is not to exploit customers for short-term gains and profits for a few stakeholders. An ethical business or enterprise, an ethical enterprise is not managed on a quarterly basis, but for the long term. The purpose of ethical enterprise, of an ethical enterprise or business, is to vigorously serve as a role model of responsibility to all its stakeholder groups for decades to come. Through ethical entrepreneurship, people can learn how to create businesses that go beyond tried business models with acceptable product market fit. Every inefficient, unproductive, or inappropriate use of resources can be scrutinized and eliminated. Enterprises that care about society may recognize where they fit in the overall picture. On the whole, an ethical value guarantees that enterprises become a legitimate engine of national development. For a morally competent enterprise, judgment based on a national perspective might simplify the odds for generosity rather than financial motivation, provided humanitarian leadership ideas lead to genuine wealth and peace for the country and the world as a whole. So we have discussed the various dimensions of ethics in an enterprise. Ethical entrepreneurship engulfs all these dimensions that we discussed today. You need to keep in mind that that ethics is important to run a new enterprise or to run entrepreneurship or to practice entrepreneurship. That is one. Ethical entrepreneurship with all its dimensions should be put in practice so that you have growth, that too a dramatic growth of your enterprise and profit. So you can practice this model and be morally be correct and to enhance the prospects of the enterprise that you have built. So with this, we come to the end of this session, wherein we discuss that ethics is very, very important for entrepreneurs. So thank you all for your patience and enjoying the session. Thank you.